Have you ever truly wondered what the city of Rome was like at its absolute peak, at the very height of its power? Can you imagine walking its streets, hearing its roar, smelling its air at the pinnacle of the empire? I promise you today, we are not just going to look at a map. We are going to step through a digital time portal. We are going to walk the streets of Rome in the year 100 AD, rebuilt for you in astonishing detail with artificial intelligence. This is the complete sensory experience of the ancient metropolis. And to start, we must face a profound problem, a cognitive wall. We think we know Imperial Rome. We see the ruins. We watch the shows. We read the names. But this creates an illusion. It tricks our brains into believing we understand the scale, the chaos, the overwhelming, pulsing reality of the place. The problem is that our imagination is built on fragments. A colomeri, a crumbling wall there. It's silent, it's static, it's dead. The Truchomi of 100 day was anything but. It was the most alive, the most overwhelming, the most crowded, the most complex city on the planet. We see the skeleton and think we've seen the beast, but we haven't. We've missed the roar, the smell, the movement, the color, the terrifying, exhilarating life of it all. Let's agitate that problem. Let's make it personal. You are not a tourist. You are a visitor from a distant province, and you have just entered through the massive Aurelian walls. Or you will be decades later. For now, let's imagine the Porta Copenhagen. The first assault is not visual. It's auditory. A deafening, constant roar carts on stone, street vendors screaming, 1,000 different languages, animals hammering from workshops, the distant cheer from a distant circus. Then the smell hits you, not a faint odor, a physical wall of scent, baking bread from a pastrinum nearby. Yes, but also the sharp tang of urine from public latrines, the heavy scent of animal sacrifice from a temple, the pungent aroma of spices from a merchant stall, and underneath it all, the pervasive, sweatrut smell of garbage, sewage, and humanity packed together. Look up. The streets are not wide, ceremonial boulevards. They are narrow, winding canyons. The famous Roman apartment blocks, the insulae loom 5, 6, even 7 stories high on either side, blocking out the sun. Their wooden balconies sag, overflowing with laundry, pots, people leaning out, washing lines crisscross the alleyways like a ragged You are at the bottom of a deep, shadowy gorge, and the city towers over you. This is the first pattern interrupt. Shift from this dizzying street-level view to a breathtaking, sweeping, AI-reconstructed aerial panorama. See the city now as an eagle would, a dense, tessellated sea of red terracotta roofs, punctuated by the brilliant white marble of temples, the green oases of private domus gardens, and the stark geometry of aqueducts snaking into the horizon. The scale is incomprehensible. 1 million souls in just a few square miles. Now, let's create our first major open loop. We all know the famous sites. The Colosseum was in its prime, gleaming with fresh travertine. The Pantheon as we know it wasn't built, yet Hadrian would build it later. But here is the mystery, the question we will answer later. In this city of 1 million, where 99% were not emperors or senators, where did all these people actually live? How did this city not collapse under its own weight, under its own filth and chaos every single day? The answer is a brutal, ingenious, and terrifying piece of urban engineering we've almost forgotten. Back to the streets. You navigate the crowds. A senator in his toga, praetexta, with a purple stripe, is carried by on a litter, his bodyguards shoving people aside. A slave, his neck chalked for sale, is marched past you in chains. A wealthy matron, followed by her retinue, chews as pearls from a merchant. And everywhere, the graffiti, not just scribbles. Political campaigns, gladiator fan clubs, insults, advertisements for brothels, and simple notes. Gaius loves Lydia. The walls literally talk. This is a city screaming to be heard. Let's take a turn. We leave the main vicus and duck into a side alley. The sounds dampen slightly. Here is the true engine room of Rome. The shops, the tobane, their wide shutters are open to the street. A fulanica Londreas, a scena steaming, acrid activity. Men are stomping on clothes in vats of human urine, used as a cleaning. The stench is overwhelming. Next door, a baker shovels loaves into a domed oven. The smell of charred wood and fresh bread is a welcome relief. Across the way, a metalsmith's hammer rings on bronze. This is a city that makes everything it needs right here in these cramped, noisy workshops. But we need to go higher. For our next pattern interrupt, we ascend not to an eagle's view, but to the third-floor balcony of an insula. Look down at the river of humanity below. Feel the structure sway slightly. These buildings were infamous for collapsing. Fire was a constant, terrifying threat. You lived with it. Now, look across the roofscape. You see the public water fountains, the lacos where most get their water. You see the shared public latrines, social hubs in their own right. You see the smoking rooftops of the bath complexes. This brings us to the heart of our open loop. The filth, the density, the fire hazard. How? The answer is not one thing, but a ruthless system. The first pillar, water. The aqueducts. They are the arteries of the city, bringing over 1 million cubic meters of fresh water every single day. It feeds the baths, the fountains, the homes of the rich. It flushes the sewers, the cloaca maxima. The Great Sewer is a marvel, but it doesn't serve the insil. Most waste goes into pots, tossed into the street or a nearby median. The city consumes and excretes on an unimaginable scale. The second pillar, grain. The Annona. Look at the harbor at Portus, recreated by AI ships from Egypt, North Africa, Sicily. A constant convoy. This free grain dole for citizen males is what prevents revolution. It feeds the mob, the warehouses, the Horia, are Fort Knox for wheat. Without this system, Rome starves in a week. It is the ultimate tool of control. Now, let's solve the mystery. Where did they all live? In the insulae. But the real answer is stacked on top of each other in single rooms, often windowless, facing inner light wells. A family in one room, heat from a brazier, light from an oil lamp, the noise of neighbors through thin walls. This is life for the vast majority. The city works because of brutal logistics, imperial vanity, and a constant, fragile balance. For our final visual interruption, we descend into the darkness. We enter the Subura, the most infamous district. The alleyways are narrower here, the stench stronger. This is the red light and low rent district. Apartments loom so close they almost touch. You hear a fight break out. A chicken scuttles by. This is the Rome most never see in films. Dangerous, vibrant, and alive. This was home for many, including Julius Caesar in his youth. We contrast this with a glimpse of pure opulence, an AI fly-through of a wealthy Dumas on the Palatine Hill. The piece is jarring. A tranquil atrium with an impluvium catching rain. Beautiful frescoes on the walls, a secluded garden, the peristalium. The sounds of the city are a distant murmur. Two worlds, separated by a few hundred meters and an impossible economic gulf, existing in the same moment. Now, the conclusion. The energy does not drop. Rome in 100 AD was not a marble museum. It was a living, breathing, snarling organism. It was the smell of incense and sewage, the sound of chanting priests and cracking whips, the sight of blinding white marble and soot-stained brick. It was a monument to human ambition and human indifference, stacked stone upon stone. It worked not because it was perfect, but because it was relentless. Its system swore grain, violence, spectacle, a feedback loop of power. It promised civilization and delivered it for a price on a scale never before seen. To walk its streets was to be part of that machine, whether as a gear or as fuel. So the next time you see a ruin, don't just see a fallen column. See the apartment block that leaned against it. Hear the shopkeeper who shouted beneath it. Smell the air that surrounded it. You have not just seen a map today, you have witnessed the beast in its prime. You have heard its roar, and that changes everything.